Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. Glad you're all here. Hope you're having a good week. It's been, weather-wise mild, but, wet, at times, and it's just, rain right now. It's raining. But the temperatures have been, in the high 50s and 60s, so it's okay. But I hear we're going to get some nice weather on Saturday, and maybe like in the 70s at some point. So summer's coming, but it's just slow getting here. So anyway, to get right on to things here, Donald Trump says that he doesn't care even a little bit about people's finances. And, with inflation hitting a 3-year high and gas prices, going through the damn sunroof, this guy, Trump, just can't stop one-upping himself. What I mean by that is, like, the bad things that he did before, he tries to make them worse the next time around. He's always like racing to the bottom, as it were. He gives Democrats all kinds of gifts for perfect campaign ads. You know what I'm saying? If this was a time for Democrats to be jotting down notes, and stuff like that, and saying, well, we can really make a good campaign ad with the stuff that, Trump is doing and what he's saying, we can bury him in the election this November. When he was asked if America's ongoing struggles with finances weigh on him, he just says not even a little bit, okay? It's weird that he would actually be honest about something. Maybe his brain problem is actually really getting bad. Now that he doesn't feel like he can lie, he just says the truth. Maybe somebody should ask him about Epstein stuff. Maybe he might slip up and say something truthful. But like I said, he says these things to the people. He doesn't care a bit about how people are suffering financially. Well, do you think that would have mattered when he was running for his second term, if he'd have said that flat out? Do you think people would have not voted for him? I don't know. I got doubts. I think that if Trump would have said something like that when he was running against Kamala Harris, the MAGA base would have been the MAGA base. They would have stuck right to him. They'd have tried to brush it off or explain it away like it was just a joke or some fucking thing, because that's what they were saying at the time when Trump was running off at the mouth and saying some pretty inflammatory things. They were just saying, oh, no, he's just being, Trump. And MAGA still turned around and supported him. But when the things that he said blatantly to crowds, and there were many of people that were supporting him, when he was saying what he was going to do, nobody seemed to really give a shit or even believe that, he was serious. And I wonder, why did they automatically assume that he wasn't being serious? Think about, going on public television in a debate against your opponent, and think of the things that he said. Now, why would he take that time to not be serious if he's trying to win an election. I mean, I just don't get how these MAGA people can actually, you know, justify that or minimize, the impact of the things that he was saying. You know, it shows a lack of, of trying to understand and have a bullshit filter. Okay, that these people would be so gullible. I mean, I think, in my opinion, I think a lot of people who get scammed on phone calls or on the internet, what texts scaring you, we were trying to sell you some. I think a lot of the victims are probably conservatives, because if they were so easy to believe a compulsive liar running for president, there's your, these are the people you want if you're trying to steal money, okay? Because they don't have a bullshit filter. They don't have it. I mean, I'd imagine some of these people would believe it if they thought Donald Trump himself gave them a call and it was some guy impersonating him. They would probably, oh yeah, I'll give you money, and it's sad because some people, and I will come this far and say some people who have mental disabilities will fall for things like that because they don't have the capacity to understand when they're being had. Okay, but those who are smart, and there are many, businessmen and stuff like that who fell for the sucker punch, okay, from Trump. They ain't got an excuse. They don't have an excuse. I mean, people like that should, really be ashamed of themselves for having voted. Of course, they're never going to admit that they did, because, a lot of these people that did was they voted for him for self-interest, thinking they were going to get something out of it, and they didn't, But I hope that every person who can vote in this country was listening to his big mouth there that day when he said he didn't care about the financial woes of American people. Because I'll tell you, that should be something that the Democrats should keep reminding people of as we go into November here, because you can't damn somebody more than that. And another thing too, and somebody had pointed this out to me at the checkout line over at Martin's. When Trump ran for president, a lot of people liked him because he talked down to people's level. Okay, he was, bad mouth, filthy mouth, or whatever. He came across as the guy next door when he was anything but. Okay, but everybody thought, oh, he speaks, we understand. Okay, yeah, okay, that sounds great. But look what happened when you were so, enlightened by this guy, because he's so different from any other politician because he doesn't mince words. He tells you flat out. Well, this is what flat out got you. And I really don't like the idea of other politicians thinking that they have to imitate Trump in order to get elected. Now, we got one here in Maine, Graham Plattner, and I'm not trying to campaign against him. I'm just saying he comes off as Trumpian in the way he talks. And I don't think we need any more of that shit. I think we need to bring class back into politics instead of taking more of it out. Now, if people don't like to hear intelligent individuals speak on the political aisle, then hey, that's your fault, because politicians should be smart enough to be able to speak clearly enough so you can understand. And if you're not understanding, maybe you're not intellectually, capable of being able to understand the language. But you should be able to understand what they mean. And that doesn't come off well. I mean, I can do these videos and talk the way I want because that's ordinary talk. That's right. That's my show. But when it comes to a politician, you got to expect a higher standard here, right? I mean, these people can't come off as being, some drunk in a bar somewhere, okay? You can't do that, okay? Because Trump did it, and we fucked ourselves, being, glamorized by him, okay? He didn't offer anything. He just talked the talk, and that was it. Everything else, everything he was saying, the substance of what he was saying was all bullshit, okay? We don't need Democrats trying to win a seat from a Republican by trying to act like Donald Trump. And I think the more, people become like that, the more they dumb down the whole system. Okay? I feel like that's kind of where, because I'm looking at all these people, like Gavin Newsom and Graham Plattner, like I was saying, and other politicians out there that are younger, and they're trying to talk like that. They're trying to be, off the cuff, and and I'm thinking, this really doesn't bode well here for our politics. That they all have to try to imitate Trump in order to get their seat. And I'm thinking, if that's the way they feel, then we've learned nothing. Because if anything, people who talk like that should be a red flag, that they are after something that it's not in your favor. Okay? Because we've learned our lesson once. Don't fool me twice. You fooled me once already. Okay? But don't try and play that silly game just so you can pocket pad your wallets. So I hope that, people will keep that in mind, because when it comes to the debates, and you see these people, one person acting more civilized and the other one acting like he's somebody you just met in a fucking bar, the visuals of that is just not, and it's not going to look right. Okay. I just, it looked really bad when Trump was debating Biden. I mean, you hear the big mouth, and then you hear, a guy with some intelligence, and it was like two opposites. I mean, just fucking positive and a negative. I mean, and yet everybody went for the negative. And when it came to Trump and Kamala Harris, again, the same contrast. And the way that all looked, it was really unsettling to me to see that, because that indicated to me, like, after all the previous years of watching debates, they just kept getting dumbed down all the way. Now we're at the pretty low when you got a guy like Trump winning elections now, and it's just, I don't think anybody should be imitating or following his path, because that doesn't mean a good thing for us. I think what people care about more than how you speak is the promises you keep. That's what we want to see. We want to see a politician who does exactly what they say they're going to do. Okay? Because if you buy a car from a used car lot, and the guy selling you the car is telling you all the good things about it, and you buy it and you find out there was a shitload of bad things they didn't say, I mean, don't you feel like, you're angry? And yeah, of course you would. You'd be mad as hell. So this is the reason why we all have these opinions about politicians and how we think they're all bad. It's because we keep picking the wrong ones. We're not listening. We're not trying to dig into what they mean. I mean, maybe at some time people used to do that. And they had less access to information than we do today, because we got the internet. But we seem to, in the past, be able to pick better politicians. Okay, I'm not saying it was always perfect, but it did seem like we had a better odds of getting somebody that was halfway decent for a politician. But now that we have more access to information and news and stuff like that, it's like went the opposite way. So access to knowledge does not guarantee intellectual choices. You make of that what you want. Okay, so Kash Patel was accused of committing federal crime in a fiery Senate hearing. Democrat Senator Chris Van Hollen flatly accused FBI Director Kash Patel of lying under oath during a contentious Senate hearing yesterday, calling the former podcaster and current whiskey enthusiast a, quote, disgrace, unquote, while Patel lobbed playground insults in the background. Patel may have shown up with his big boy pants on, but this, quote, I know you are, but what am I, unquote, line of defense betrayed a weirdly sophomoric man-child within absolutely desperate for the teacher to dismiss class for recess. Yeah. Kash Patel. Yeah, a failure in so many ways. Why he's still there as a, with the FBI, I don't know. Makes the whole FBI look bad. Okay, they're saying that he's been fretting quite a bit there about losing his job. He's worried about Trump firing him and stuff. Hey, it just may happen. He's got every reason to worry because he's seeing, his other colleagues getting shit canned. But, people are getting sick and tired of him, of not doing his job. And I don't know. I mean, I think like it's just, it's par for the course. Every one of the people that he selected at the beginning of his second term last year were all people that were like, huh? Even MAGA was like, what? Like I said, they didn't like J.D. Vance when he was running with him, okay? They didn't like him at all. Because Vance campaigned hard against Trump when he was running initially for the White House, okay? Until Trump plucked him from the race. But, yeah, they remember the things that he said. And they know, and when you see how he was and then what he is, he's kissing the ring, essentially. It's so obvious. And that's what a lot of these people are doing here, okay? A lot of what these people have done has been kissing the ring until they get their ass kicked out, and fired. But, it shows an unstable administration or an unstable regime, okay? It shows that it's really weak. I mean, Trump's been trying to broker a ceasefire with Iran, and Iran says, fuck you. They don't like him. They do not like him at all. And why should they? Think about this for a minute. When he started dealing with Iran, it was guns first. He went in there with guns blazing. He went with Israel, which was mistake number one. He went in there with fucking Israel, and they started bombing the shit out of Iran. Okay? Now, a few weeks go by, okay? And now he's sitting here saying, well, let's work with you guys to have a ceasefire. It's like, let's look at this in reverse here. Imagine Adolf Hitler, okay, attacking the United States, and he takes down the Capitol, and he does all this damage, and then all of a sudden he comes to the president and says, let's talk about a ceasefire. Now, how do you think that looks? For one thing, that makes us think, is Hitler worried that he's gone too far? That you know what I'm saying? And why should we trust him after what he's just done? This is how they're looking at Trump, people. They don't trust him at all, okay? And they've got good reason not to. I wouldn't trust him. I would not trust that man at all, because he doesn't mean what he says. You'll get a ceasefire, and then 2 days later he'll be out there bombing something else that belongs to. You can't trust this guy. And Israel, Netanyahu, having Trump next to him, I mean, that partnership ain't gonna last. Okay, nobody that ever does any business with him, it doesn't go very far. Okay, Trump will do something that'll piss Netanyahu off. Okay, if he hasn't already. But there's not going to be any permanent bond between the two men because, for one thing, they're too much alike. And another thing is Trump has a bad track record of holding on to colleagues and, friends or whatever, okay? He has no people skills, as it were. So, because of that, he couldn't even talk about a ceasefire. What Obama had in place before all this shit happened was holding everything together, and he undid all that. And now he's trying to get it back. He's trying to get back what was already in place that he fucked up. Okay? And Iran's not going to let it happen. As long as he's still the president, Iran's not going to let him get the upper hand on anything. Okay? This will go on. And, I know for people here, I mean, that's not good news because, we're getting hit hard in our wallets here for the basics. And if this isn't the time to be trying to back a guy that nobody can trust. If they can't trust him, why should you? Why should the voters trust him? Okay, we should all be pushing for impeachment. Okay, we should all be pushing for the 25th Amendment, or some way to get him out of office. Remember, I told you last year that last year it was going to be chaos. This year it's going to be about how do we get rid of this man. And that's where we are right now. We want to get rid of him because he's wrecking everything. He's wrecked the house, as it were. We gave him the keys to the house, and we came home, and the fucking house is all in a disarray. And he's sitting there acting, oh, I ain't gonna do nothing. Okay, that's what he's done in the what, 6 months, I guess. Okay, or whatever, or a year and a half. Okay, we haven't got much going for us right now as a country, and we're still teetering on a depression here. Okay, if there's anything that's going to push us into one, it's going to be these gas prices that are going to keep going up because it affects everything, not just your driving, but everything that's shipped, that takes fuel, your plane tickets, everything that needs fuel, it's all going to go through the fucking roof in cost. You can't run a country like that and expect that the capitalist system that we all pride ourselves having is going to survive it. Okay, it's already collapsed before. It can, and it can do it again. It's a matter of time. And it probably won't be that much longer. This summer here, as people start traveling, you're going to probably see a lot of drawback of people not wanting to go anywhere. And that's going to affect a lot of business. Okay, I mean, right now they're already showing some, people are not booking and stuff, hotels are as much. That happened last year, okay? That happened last year, especially here in Maine. Jesus Christ. I mean, Old Orchard Beach was practically a ghost town during the summer. It was hardly anybody there because nobody wanted to come down here. That was when Trump was fighting with Canada, and the Canadians protested the United States by not coming to the States, okay? Yeah, sure, a few came down, but most of them didn't come. And the areas where they usually go to visit, to enjoy the beaches and stuff like that, they just weren't there. And a lot of these places went belly up after that, and so we're going to be seeing that yet again. So, yeah. Really bad times, economically speaking, that are on their way here. So, I don't know. Now, get a load of this here. This is from a Fox News affiliate. Trying to see. Okay. It's article here. It says Tennessee Democrats removed from House committees following special session disruptions. Tennessee House Speaker Cameron Sexton removed Democratic lawmakers from House standing committees and subcommittees on Tuesday following disruptions during the recent special session on congressional redistricting. In a letter addressed to House Democratic leader Karen Camper, dated May 12th, Sexton accused members of the Democrat caucus of actions aimed at, quote, disrupting the democratic and legislative process and creating disorder on the House floor, unquote. The letter cited several incidents, including interlocking arms in the well of the House, blocking aisles on the House floor, encouraging disruptions with protesters and attendees in the gallery, the use of prohibited props and noisemakers, flagrant disregard for House rules. Sexton also alleged members distributed earplugs to another Democratic lawmaker during the demonstrations. Quote, members of the Democratic caucus will receive individual letters removing them all from standing committees and subcommittees of the House, unquote, Sexton wrote. Individual letters sent to lawmakers informed them that they had been removed from committee assignments. One letter sent to Democratic leader Karen Camper stated she would only remain on the Government Operations Committee as required under House rules. Another letter addressed to Representative Jason Powell informed him he had been removed from all House standing committees and subcommittees and directed questions to Camper. The move follows a contentious special session at the Capitol, where lawmakers debated and ultimately approved new congressional district maps, gerrymandering. Demonstrations inside and out committee rooms led to repeated disruptions throughout the week. Speaker Sexton has constitutional authority to set that into motion. This will stay in place until he says otherwise. So, yes, like people were saying, when the Supreme Court backed up this shit, okay, for redistricting, the Republicans just went ape shit. And this is an example here of the Republicans trying to ram through all kinds of gerrymandering maps before the election. And they're basically kicking Democrats in the nuts to get out of the way, because we're doing this, and if you don't like it, fuck you, okay? This is a sign that they know there's a big blue wave coming their way. It's all hands on deck as far as the Republican Party is concerned. And B, panic, okay? Panic, panic, panic. These people are desperate, okay? But at the same time, what all they're really probably going to be able to accomplish is the reduction of seats lost, but they will still lose the majority in the Congress and possibly the Senate, okay? But what they don't want is to lose big, okay? If they lose big, it's going to take a longer time to reclaim those seats, okay? So they're trying to minimize the damage they get. But like I said before, if we all vote, if nobody stays home and we all get out and vote, the gerrymandering isn't really going to help much, okay? Because that's all based on who's voting and how many are voting. And that's why they want to redraw the maps, okay? So if everybody votes, okay, then the numbers are going to really outweigh the gerrymandering, at least in many areas, and the losses can still be substantial for the Republican Party. Okay, but like I said, this is basically a big sign here that this is what's happening now in different states in the country here, as a force try to drive these maps down people's throats, and that's all thanks to the Supreme Court, who basically destroyed, people's ability to fucking get their voices heard and vote. You can't have a more anti-American Supreme Court than what we got now, okay. And I feel like they're going to go down in history as probably the worst court we ever had, because they are not standing for a constitution. They're not standing for the laws that have always been helping to keep this country going. They don't care. Why? Because the guy in the White House doesn't want these things. They're operating the Supreme Court in a political fashion, which is that's a no-no. Okay. Instead of doing their job, which is to defend the Constitution and interpret, people's needs through that, they've taken the active role of trying to protect Trump, to try to protect the Republicans, because the majority of the judges are Republican, and that is not allowed. It shouldn't be allowed. I mean, I don't know if there's any rule or anything like that states that they have to be objective, that they cannot side with either party, because what's the point of having this court if everything they decide on is only going to be political issues? They're not the people who make the laws in this country, okay? That's not the way it's set up. But Trump has given them the ability to do these things and say these things, and the green light coming from the Supreme Court for these states to actively bar people from having their voices heard by redrawn maps. Who's running the country here, the court or Washington? Or the White House? Who the fuck's running the country here? I mean, we know that the Congress and the Senate can't really do anything. So it's been either Trump or the court that's been guiding this country here all this time so far. And that's got to stop. Because that's not getting us anywhere but in deeper shit. That's not the way our system is supposed to work, believe it or not. All you gotta do is read your basic civics studies and stuff like that that you had when you was in high school. It lays right out in there exactly how that's supposed to work. You know, now that's all theoretical because we've ruined it. Okay, but essentially what's going on now is the power has shifted from the hands of the politicians into the laps of the court, and you can't run a country like that. Okay, there's nothing good ever comes out of that shit, and we're seeing that. You know, people are being ignored, people's rights are being trampled on through the court because it's all Republican dominated nuts that's running it. Okay, if I was a fucking a member of the court as a Democrat, I'd resign. I say I don't want to be tied in with these fucking people. They're gonna drag my name through the mud as they continually strip away people's ability to say and do things. You know those the self-described Democrats who are the justices ought to just leave and say no. Well, I'm not going to stay here, not for this. Okay, because they're outnumbered for one thing. Was it 6-4? So they can protest what the other justices are doing, but it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, the majority of them get their way, and as long as they stick together, they're always going to win. So I say they ought to just say adios. This ain't the Supreme Court anymore. This is just another arm of Trump's government. That's all it's become. They're there to protect every fucking executive order, every fucking creed that he fucking utters. I mean, that's basically what they're there for. He ain't the Constitution, okay? He's just an idiot, sitting in the White House, but he is not the Constitution, but they're treating him as if their job is to protect him, as if he is the Constitution, and he's not. That's the mistake that they're making, So, anyway, let's go to a commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
Hey, Trump supporter here. This goes out to Don Jr. and Eric. Where the fuck's my phones? I ordered 4 gold Trump phones in the summer. Told they're going to be the best. Talked my son into ordering some. We heard they're going to come out in September. Yeah, we can fucking wait. September rolls around. No, it's going to be November. No, it's going to be the end of the year. They actually stopped taking orders for them in November. Now we can't get any fucking updates on them. Give me my fucking phones or give me my money back.
Now, I may not be a customer service representative from Trump Mobile, but I do have an update for you. Except it's not about your phone. The update was to the terms and conditions that were updated on the Trump Mobile website. The $100 pre-order deposits that consumers like you sent to the company are now referred to as a conditional opportunity if Trump Mobile later elects, in its sole discretion, to offer the device for sale. The irony in all of this is it was marketed to you guys as a smartphone, But apparently only stupid people bought it. I mean, what do you expect from a company whose slogans were Trump Mobile? Can you hear the grift now? Trump Mobile, the official carrier of Trust Me Bro. And Trump Mobile, now with 100% more concepts of coverage. But I do have some good news for you. You are not the only idiot. After all, there are 560,000 equally brain dead people out there who generated $59 million for Trump Mobile. I swear, being a Trump supporter has nothing to do with political affiliation. Now it's just an expensive hobby. The fact that you guys continue to get scammed by this guy is just fascinating. It's like getting mugged by someone who's wearing a shirt that says, I am absolutely going to mug you. It is blatantly obvious, and you continue to hand over your credit cards and make donations to a Make-A-Wish Foundation for billionaires, while you sit there and search through your couch for coins to pay for your gas. And I truly get angry, because at the end of the day, if Donald Trump wasn't president and you guys wanted to fall for his bullshit and give him your money hand over fist, that is your prerogative. But now you have dragged down the rest of the country with you. I hate you all. Anyways, bye.
The average American spent $4,200 more last year just keeping up with inflation. What did Donald Trump do? He made it worse. Much worse. Donald Trump's cabinet has a combined net worth of over $700 billion. His own family is making billions. They don't buy gas like us. They don't buy groceries. They don't check airline prices. They have their own planes. Donald Trump's private war is killing us. He doesn't care. Nobody around him cares. They live in a different world. Must be nice. They think we're stupid, and we'll keep voting to keep them in power. What do you think? Had enough?
Plan for the end of the war was built on one. In April of 1865, the bloodiest war in American history was finally over. 600,000 dead, cities burned to the ground, families torn apart, and at the center of it all were the men who led the South into secession: Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, and the rest of the Confederate government and army. So here's the question that still hangs in the air even today. Why did they walk free when the last shots were fired? A lot of people in the North expected trials. Hangings even. After all, this was treason. The Constitution is pretty clear about that. These men had taken up arms against the United States. They had formed their own country, printed their own money, and fought for 4 long years to break the Union apart. But that's not what happened. Abraham Lincoln made a choice before he died. His whole plan for the end of the war was built on one idea: heal the nation, don't break it further. He said it himself in his second inaugural address: with malice toward none, with charity for all. He wanted the South back, not crushed. He believed that dragging generals and politicians into court would just pour salt into a wound that was already too deep. Then Lincoln was assassinated, and Andrew Johnson took over. Johnson was a Tennessean, a Southern Unionist who hated the plantation elite, but also hated the idea of punishing the South too harshly. On May 29, 1865, he issued a sweeping amnesty. If you took an oath of loyalty to the United States, you were pardoned. Just like that. Now there were exceptions. 14 categories of people weren't included at first: high-ranking Confederate officials, generals, anyone who owned more than $20,000 in property. But even they could apply directly to Johnson for a personal pardon. And they did, by the thousands, and Johnson granted them. So what about the law? Couldn't the government have tried them anyway? It's complicated. Treason is the only crime defined in the Constitution, and the bar is high. You need 2 witnesses to the same overt act or a confession in open court. Prosecutors were terrified of putting Robert E. Lee on trial and losing. An acquittal would look like a court saying secession was legal after all. Nobody in Washington wanted to risk that, and there was something else: exhaustion. The country had just buried more than 2% of its population. People wanted it to be over. They wanted to rebuild farms, reopen railroads, find sons who never came home. A wave of trials and executions felt like starting the war again, just in a courtroom. So what did happen to Confederate leaders? Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, spent 2 years in prison at Fort Monroe. He was indicted for treason but never tried. The government dropped the case in 1869. Robert E. Lee applied for a pardon, lost his citizenship for over a century, and became president of Washington College. He died in 1870 a private citizen. The only Confederate executed for war crimes was Henry Wirz, the commander of Andersonville Prison, where nearly 13,000 Union soldiers died of disease and starvation. By Christmas of 1868, Johnson issued a blanket pardon for everyone. A full pardon and amnesty for the offense of treason, he wrote, to all who participated in the late insurrection. Congress followed with amnesty acts in 1872 and 1898. The political rights of former Confederates were restored. Was it justice? That depends on who you ask. For some, it was mercy that saved the country from another decade of violence. For others, it was a betrayal, a moment when the nation chose unity over accountability and let the men who fought to preserve slavery walk away untouched. The war ended in 1865, but the argument over how it ended, that's still with us. If this video helped you, then like the video, drop a comment, and subscribe to the channel.
DoorDash Girl, the sneaky spy who brings the fries.
She delivers, she discovers, snap and share it all.
Press the crash out button and... I'm the victim! DoorDash Girl, the villain next door.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, folks. Welcome back. All right. This article here shouldn't be of any surprise to those of you who are like-minded as myself, to understand shit when you hear it. But this here article is spelling out exactly what we already know to be true. This is from Mediaite. It was a report from the New York Times. Trump and Hegseth have been drastically overstating military success in Iran. Duh. Trump and Defense Secretary Hegseth drastically overestimated U.S. success in crippling Iran's military capabilities, classified assessments show. The president, his Department of Defense chief, and many others within the administration have repeatedly claimed that Iran's military has been, quote-unquote, decimated, almost wholly crippled by U.S. strikes. Yet military intelligence agencies' reports and those with knowledge of them told a different story. Iran has regained access to a majority of its missile sites, including 30 out of the 33 located along the Strait of Hormuz, according to a report from the New York Times. This capability, senior officials told the outlet, could cause serious damage to U.S. vessels passing through that strait. Quote, people with knowledge of the assessments say they show to varying degrees, depending on the level of damage incurred at the different sites, that the Iranians can use mobile launchers that are inside the sites to move missiles to other locations, unquote. This report reads, quote, in some cases, they can launch missiles directly from launch pads that are part of the facilities, unquote. The country has access to 70% of mobile missile launchers and has held on to 70% of its ballistic and cruise missiles throughout the conflict. Iran also regained access to 90% of its underground facilities used to store and launch missiles, which are now, quote, partially or fully operational, unquote. Those familiar with the intelligence assessment said, the assessments dated from early May strongly contradict statements made by Trump administration officials about the war in recent months. Trump has claimed on multiple occasions that the U.S. has, quote, unquote, won the war, including claiming in an April speech that Iran's, quote, rocket launchers are being blown to pieces, very few of them left, unquote. Quote, never in the history of warfare has an enemy suffered such clear and devastating large-scale losses in a matter of weeks, unquote, Trump said. The outlet also noted Hegseth's declaration at an April press conference where he claimed that Operation Epic Fury had, quote, decimated Iran's military and rendered it combat ineffective for years to come, unquote. Well, the intelligence describing Iran's remaining military capacity is dated less than a month after that news conference, unquote. The report read, White House spokeswoman Olivia Wales claimed when asked about the assessments that Iran's military had been crushed, echoing Trump's claim in March that Iran had, quote, nothing left in a military sense, unquote. Wales said that the Iranian government knew that its, quote, current reality is not sustainable, unquote, and that everyone who, quote, thinks Iran has reconstituted its military is either delusional or a mouthpiece, unquote, for Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Acting Pentagon Press Secretary Joel Valdez chose to call out the press when asked by the New York Times about the assessments. Quote, it is so disgraceful that the New York Times and others are acting as public relations agents for the Iranian regime in order to paint Operation Epic Fury as anything other than a historic accomplishment, unquote, he said in a statement. Iran's strong and ongoing military capability could pose a potential problem for the United States if hostilities resume. The Times claimed, in light of reporting that the Pentagon has used a staggering amount of its weapons cache in the war with Iran, spending millions and blowing through a large chunk of its stockpile. Over 1,000 precision strike and ground-based missiles were deployed in the war, an amount that emptied the U.S. tranche to such an extent that congressional officials and Defense Department estimates showed concern. Munitions have been used to the point where bombs have had to be sent from Asian and European commands to accommodate U.S. needs, draining their own weapons supplies and, crucially, their surveillance capabilities. quote, "We have executed multiple successful operations across combatant commands while ensuring the U.S. military possesses a deep arsenal of capabilities to protect our people and our interests," unquote, Pentagon spokesman Sean Parnell said in a statement to the Times. Yes, this is probably another reason why Iran won't talk ceasefire, because they know that the situation, because information flows both ways in today's world, people. Don't make any, they know exactly what we're capable of, and we know what they're capable of. And I'm telling you right now, they don't trust Trump. They know the United States has sunk a shitload of money into this fight, and they've gotten very little in return. Instead, what we got are high gas prices, higher than ever seen in this country. Okay? And the blockade isn't hurting Iran that much. Okay? It's hurting us more, I think, in the end. But, you know, this is all propaganda coming from the White House. Of course he's going to lie and say that we're doing well. When does he ever tell the truth about anything? You know? Except that he doesn't give a shit about people's finances in this country. When does he ever fucking say anything else that's truthful? Okay? Why should we even believe him when he says that we're doing well in Iran? I certainly never did. I don't even believe, you know, that there was even talk of a ceasefire at some time. I think sometimes they just say that to make it sound like that, oh, we are trying to work the peace angle, but Trump has nothing to want to do with it. But I also think at the same time, Iran really doesn't want to talk ceasefire with Trump because they don't trust him. All right, there's a lot of reasons around that why that's happening that you know, we could entertain here for hours. But the fact is that what Trump tells us in whatever press, if it's coming out of, you know, the press secretary or whoever, that's all stuff he's telling them to say. So whatever was being said, okay, isn't, I wouldn't take that as gospel or set in stone. I mean, it's all fluid. It's all, you know, how do we call it? They trying to confuse people with the language. It's designed to give impressions instead of making people understand. And it's not what you would want someone who's supposed to be the most transparent, you know, administration in history to be. He's not being, he hasn't, since he started, he ain't been transparent. He's just fucking, he's just constantly trying to shut people up. He goes after the media outlets, even Fox News, when they slip up. Comedians can't even take a shot at him. Okay, it's just, what the fuck? What, you know, he's always hiding everything. Transparency be damned, okay? He's not doing it. and I know Republicans have said in the past, you know, they want to know everything when something, you know, especially when a Democrat's a president, they want transparency. But here when we have this, the tables reverse, they're quiet, and the Democrats are the ones screaming for transparency. Okay? So, I don't really understand why people really, you know, give a shit about when the press tells us something that they got from Trump, or Trump said this, Trump said that. It's like, oh, today, you know, a groundhog said the winter's going to last longer. I mean, who the hell gives a shit? Okay? That's the way I feel about it. Whenever something's reported that Trump said or did or something like that, I'm not even interested, because I know from the get-go it's all lies. I just know. I accept the fact that it's a lie. You have to prove to me that it's truthful. You got to prove to me that what he's saying is truthful. It used to be, I could believe somebody, but you're going to have to prove to me that they're lying. And a lot of times when Republicans would accuse Democrats of lying, they couldn't give you evidence to show that. Now, I'm on the other side of the fence here. You know, I want MAGA to show me that he's being honest. And they can't do it. They just can't. And if they have to try too hard to convince you, they accuse you of being partisan, or, you know, whatever. They try to label you something and run away because they can't win the fight or the debate, whatever, or even answer the question. So, like I said, this, like I said, this report really doesn't surprise me, okay? I knew all along they've been lying about everything about this. Even Venezuela, all the shit that went on in Venezuela, I knew right from the minute that was not anything about drugs. And I was right, okay? Had nothing to do about drugs, but that's what Trump wanted you to think. Again, lies. When a guy lies all the time, you're smart not to believe him. Don't let a liar continually fool you, because you're just not learning. You're not awake to understand the realities of your world if you're going to constantly take his word for everything when he's got a vested interest in keeping things from you. It doesn't work. You can't run a nation that way. People are eventually going to get sick and fucking tired of hearing bullshit, and that's where I'm at. I'm tired of it. I was tired of it when he was president the first time, and the rest of the country was too. That's why he lost to Joe Biden so bad, okay? But too many people forgot about those days, and, and they listened to the right-wing propaganda, and Trump played the victim as well as he possibly could to get sympathy, and all that equaled having him back in there again. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what's going on there. Okay, here's a little interesting article here. This is from the American Prospect, and it's written by David Dayan, entitled Mamdani Announces Balanced Budget Without Cuts. Buoyed by billions in assistance from the state, real talk about what it takes to run New York City, and some taxes on the rich, the mayor closed a historic leftover budget deficit. New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani released a city budget on Tuesday that completely eliminates what he has described as a $12 billion deficit left over from the Eric Adams administration, the largest gap since the Great Recession. The budget does not include the property tax increases Mamdani threatened earlier in the year, or any new taxes on ordinary New Yorkers, and the mayor's office says there are no cuts to city services for those in need. Solving the budget riddle, which is still subject to negotiations with the city council and the resolution of a state budget that funnels billions to the city, clears a major hurdle that threatened Mamdani's expansive agenda before it even got started. The mayor had planned for several new investments, including universal child care, free and fast city buses, and a pilot of 5 public grocery stores, and much more. Some of these priorities are embedded in the new budget. The deficit closure is achieved in part through addressing what Mamdani has called gimmicks and making more forthright assessments of what the city can bear. But it also adopts the kind of government efficiency critics often argue that democratic socialists refuse to provide. Quote, many said the only way out of this was slashing services and passing an austerity budget. We rejected that, unquote, Mamdani said in a video accompanying the announcement. Quote, our city is now on firm financial ground, unquote. Much of the budget hole was filled by changing the relationship between New York State and its largest city. Earlier on Tuesday, Mamdani and Governor Kathy Hochul announced a total of $8 billion in state assistance for New York City over the next 2 fiscal years, achieved through reducing costs on the citywide, formalizing the expansion of universal free child care worth $1.2 billion annually, and making investments in education and infrastructure. Quote, I have been committed to ensuring New York City succeeds because a strong and stable city means an even stronger New York State, unquote, Hochul said in a statement. The state, which must approve nearly all new city taxes, has allowed one major tax on second homes valued over $5 million, known as the pied-à-terre tax. This has angered ultra-wealthy New Yorkers like Citadel founder Ken Griffin. Mamdani has added another tax on wealthy individuals by limiting something called the Unincorporated Business Tax, UBT, which is largely a benefit for sole proprietorships and LLCs. but the pied-à-terre tax raises an estimated $500 million in revenues per year, just a fraction of the $12 billion needed, and the limitations on the UBT would yield $68 million. Mamdani and state leaders dealt with the bulk of the budget deficit through other means. One provision that will have a legitimate effect on city residents is a negotiated delay to a class size reduction law that would have kicked in for the upcoming school year, requiring 80% of the city classrooms to have between 20 and 25 students, depending on the grade level. Mamdani has been negotiating for the city for an additional 2 years to meet the mandate, while state legislators have talked about a percentage compliance reduction. For example, 70% of classrooms might comply next year. Mamdani's office said it was working through the final details with state officials and labor unions. The administration has committed to hiring 1,000 more teachers to begin to implement the class size reduction. But what they call a more realistic timeline will save $500 million in the next fiscal year. Full compliance with the original timeline would have cost $1.7 billion per year for new teachers alone. Most of the city's high poverty schools are under the class size cap. The delay would primarily be for higher income schools. The Mamdani administration has also been talking about restructuring the timing of certain pension payments while making no changes to benefits for retirees or current employees. Some have criticized this step as increasing long-term obligations while freeing up money in the short term. The final deal makes no changes to a mandatory contribution to city pension funds while smoothing out the unfunded accrued liabilities payment, which is based on an actuarial analysis of future needs. Excuse me. The current schedule can fluctuate by hundreds of millions of dollars every year. Mamdani extends those payments by 5 years and makes them consistent while banking the difference for the next fiscal year. City pension funds would continue to be funded above the national average, Mamdani's office says. City FHEPS, a rental assistant program for poor New Yorkers that the City Council expanded in 2023, but which has yet to be implemented, will also see changes that the Mamdani administration characterizes as addressing chronic under-budgeting and reining in cost growth, both by centralizing support functions, limiting emergency hotel use, and other tools to help residents find permanent housing. The city has not been realistic about increases in city FHEPS spending. The mayor pointed out in his preliminary budget the proposed savings would total about $519 million in the next fiscal year. Mamdani has faced protests from housing advocates after his administration filed an appeal in a lawsuit initially pursued against Adams to implement the expansion. The mayor's office says settlements negotiations for the lawsuit are ongoing. Another significant chunk of the deficit is reduced by making city government more efficient. The city found $1.77 billion in operational savings by reducing overtime, negotiating better rates on outside contracts, modernizing software and technology, consolidating leases, and giving up excess property, phasing out programs nobody was using, claiming revenue owed to the city, and better estimating actual expenses. In addition, the budget proposal would reduce so-called Carter cases, whereby families of students with disabilities can get their private school education expenses reimbursed by the government if the city itself cannot provide a public education for those students. New York City spent $1.3 billion on Carter cases last year, so investing in special education to accept students with disabilities in public schools actually saves money. The administration estimates an increase in Carter spending this year, but it will drop in 2027 with $149 million in net annual savings. The proposed budget also restores $2 billion to the city's rainy day fund and adds $5.2 billion to the Retiree Health Benefit Trust. City Council Speaker Julie Menin, who would negotiate the final budget, with Mondami released the following statement, quote, "We are pleased with Governor Hochul and the state legislature's commitment to providing the city with billions in additional funds and savings. We have important work ahead to advance key priorities, including affordability, public transit access, and investments in the services New Yorkers rely on every day," unquote. Mondami's administration believes that any attempt to address the affordability crisis will only succeed if it is honest about past budgets that papered over significant gaps. Incorporating realistic and predictable estimates can identify what resources are legitimately available for the rest of the agenda. Quote, "We're proud to put forward a budget for the working people of the city," unquote. He adds, quote, "and we're going to do it again next year." So, all this, remember how fucking people would just shit all over this guy. And here he seems to be doing a decent job. Okay. And, a lot of governors, a lot of mayors in this country could take notes. Okay. That despite what they tell people, that things are impossibly dire, that they can't be fixed, it can be if people are committed to fixing it. If people are willing to put their bullshit talk aside, their propaganda, about owning the libs or whatever, if people can come to the fucking table and hammer out ideas, they can fix problems. It is possible. Okay? And, I would just hope that people can see that, this isn't a bullshit story. This is really happening, and it's possible. As bad as things are, things can be fixed. It's going to take work, but it can be fixed. So, I think, with Mondami showing people in the whole country what he's doing in New York City, it really matters. It really encapsulates, the hope that yes, things can change for the better, but the right people in charge. And right now we don't have the right people in charge as far as the government's concerned. So anyway, that's it for today. So I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Subscribe, comment, share. Keep your ears open for health issues. And please help each other out there when you can. It really matters. I will talk to you guys later.